My name is Melissa, and this isn't an easy night for me to talk about. I'm shaking right now just remembering that moment, because I swear to God, I still feel like I can hear his voice in my ear. It was 11:46 p.m. My phone rang. It was my son, Jacob. He's a doctor, a brilliant one, the kind of kid other moms brag about at family dinners. But that night, his voice didn't sound like the Jacob I raised. He didn't even say, "Hey, Mom." He just whispered, like he didn't want someone near him to listen. "Mom, I need you to come behind the hospital parking lot, right now." I thought maybe he was tired, maybe overworked. Doctors do impossible shifts. But then he cut me off mid-sentence and his tone turned darker. "Mom, please, before you get here, promise me you will not call the police." My heart slipped down into my stomach. Why would my son, a doctor, say something like that? I asked him what was wrong. I asked if someone was hurt. But he just kept breathing fast, like a panic animal cornered in a cage. He only repeated the same sentence, slower, colder. "Promise me, Mom. Don't call the cops. Just come." I grabbed my coat and keys and walked out into the night like a robot. I didn't even remember locking the door. My brain was doing its own thing. The whole drive, my fingers were shaking on the steering wheel. Streetlights looked darker than normal. It felt like the city itself was warning me to turn around. I kept thinking, did he do something? Did something happen to him? To someone else? By the time I reached the back parking of the hospital, Jacob was already standing near the rear of a black sedan. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, and he wouldn't let me step closer to the car door. He just looked at me with eyes full of fear and said, "Mom, before you see who's inside, you promised." If you guys are interested in this story, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next parts. Jacob looked like a ghost. He kept glancing left and right, like he expected somebody to show up any second, like someone was watching us. I whispered, "Jacob, who's in the car?" He didn't answer at first. His jaw was tight. His breathing was uneven. Then he finally said the first name. "It's Emily." My heart literally paused. Emily wasn't a random person. Emily Parker was Jacob's fiancée, the girl he was supposed to marry next spring. The girl I had dinner with 2 nights ago at our house, laughing, talking wedding colors, picking playlist songs. She was sweet, soft-spoken, a nurse at the same hospital. Why the hell would she be in that car? I tried to step closer. Jacob blocked me with his arm. "Mom, listen to me," he whispered harshly. "You need to understand. This is not what you think." Before I could respond, I heard movement from inside the car, like someone shifting their weight, someone alive. I swallowed hard. "Jacob, is she hurt?" He closed his eyes like he was afraid to open them again. "Mom, she didn't come here alone." That one sentence changed everything. There was more than one person in that car. He looked over his shoulder and then leaned closer to my face like he didn't want even the wind to hear. The man inside with her. His name is Victor. Victor wasn't a stranger either. Victor Hayes was the hospital's head surgeon. Jacob Sr., the guy who treated Jacob like a brother. And Emily was in a car, behind a hospital. Late at night, with him, I felt like I was drowning in slow motion. Jacob's voice cracked. "They were supposed to be at home, Mom, together, planning." His hands were shaking so bad I could see his knuckles turning white. "And when I opened the back door earlier," he said, staring at the ground like he couldn't lift his eyes anymore. What I saw, I still can't believe it. My throat dried. "Jacob," I whispered, "what exactly did you see?" He took a breath, one deep painful breath. "They weren't alone in that car, Mom. There's something else. Someone else. In the trunk." For a second, I literally forgot how to breathe. Someone else. In the trunk? My mind went blank. Not scared, not shocked, just blank. I stared at Jacob, waiting for him to say it was a joke, a misunderstanding, something normal. But he didn't blink. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal key. The keychain had the hospital logo on it. It looked official. "This key," he whispered. "It's for the trunk." My legs got weak. I leaned against the car door just to stay standing. "Jacob, tell me who's inside before I open anything." He rubbed his forehead like he was about to break down. "Mom, listen." His voice cracked again. "This isn't about cheating. It's worse. Way worse." I looked at the dark hospital windows in the distance. It suddenly felt like every window was a cold, dead eye staring at us. "Jacob, who is in that trunk?" He finally looked up. His eyes were glassy, like he was trying not to cry. "Her name is Naomi." I had never heard that name before. "Who is Naomi?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "She's a 16-year-old patient. She went missing yesterday." My body shivered so violently it hurt. "Jacob, did you put her there?" His face twisted like someone stabbed him. "No, Mom, I didn't do anything. I was finishing rounds when I saw Victor and Emily take her out of a wheelchair and push her into this car. They thought no one saw them, but I did." My stomach flipped. So it wasn't Jacob. It was them, Emily and Victor. The people who smiled in our kitchen. The people who toasted champagne at family dinners. Monsters. Jacob looked at the car again, terrified. "I'm pretty sure she's still alive. But I don't know how long." I took one small step toward the trunk. Jacob grabbed my wrist. "Mom, listen to me. If you open it and there's no going back, these people, they're dangerous. They're not scared to cover things up. I think they've done this before." The night went silent, like the world itself paused. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And then from the trunk, 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The trunk lid rose like the mouth of some dark animal. For a second the world blurred. Headlights, hospital glass, my own breath fogging the air. I braced myself and leaned in while Jacob steadied my shoulders. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. Instead, I forced my hands to move. There she was. Naomi, small, pale, wrapped in a thin blanket. Her hair matted, eyes fluttering. She looked years younger than I imagined. A scared child more than a patient. There was a strip of dried bruises along her forearm and a hospital wristband half torn. I felt like the blood left my face. "Mom," Jacob said quietly, "she's alive. Thank God." I lifted her as gently as if I was holding glass. Her weight was light, almost too light. Her eyelids trembled. She made a small noise, like a bird, and then opened her eyes. For a moment, she only stared. Then she focused on me, and her expression cracked into terror and relief at the same time. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't let them know I was here." I swallowed so hard my throat hurt. "We're getting you inside. You're safe." Jacob moved fast. He unlocked the passenger door and slid Naomi onto the back seat, wrapping the blanket tighter. He kept checking the rearview mirror like a man who expected a car to explode through the lot at any second. As we started moving toward the emergency basement, Naomi mumbled something that made my blood run cold. They said I'd be quiet if I did what they wanted, she said. Her voice was small but steady. They said... She cut off, eyes wild. I reached for her hand and it felt foreign, like I was holding someone else's frightened child. By the time we turned into the dim service road, Jacob whispered a plan again. We'll park by door C. I'll carry her to intake and tell them. I found her unresponsive in the trunk. We'll say we called it in anonymously. Someone will take over and will disappear. Disappear, I echoed. How do you expect to disappear from your own hospital? Victor and Emily will see you in a minute. Jacob's jaw tightened. I'll go through the staff entrance. You take Naomi. Act like you're a volunteer who found her. No one will know. We have about 3 minutes before Emily and Victor leave the ICU. I felt time dissolve into a narrow beam of light. We pulled up to the service door. Jacob checked his watch. I could hear boots on linoleum somewhere inside the building, a noise that used to mean safety. Now it sounded like approaching predators. As Jacob stepped out, Naomi's eyes locked on mine. She squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. Promise me one thing, she said, breathless. Anything, I said. Don't let them take me back, she whispered. The words hit me like ice. Jacob looked up from the driver's seat. He was pale but resolved. Stay with her, he told me. I'll distract them. I nodded because I had no choice. I lifted Naomi, and together we stepped toward the door that smelled like disinfectant and secrets. Behind us, the parking lot lights hummed. In the distance, a car engine started. I could feel my heart hammering like a drum in my chest as we approached the basement door. Every echo of our footsteps against the concrete sounded, like it was announcing our presence to the whole world. Naomi was trembling, but I held her close, whispering, "It's okay, you're safe now." Jacob was already at the door, glancing over his shoulder like a soldier on a mission. He keyed in the code he had memorized from months of working late shifts. The door clicked open and a wave of stale air hit us. It smelled like antiseptic and forgotten things, a mixture that somehow made my stomach twist even more. "Quick," Jacob hissed. "This way." He led us down the narrow corridor that smelled faintly of bleach. I could see the faint glow of emergency lights bouncing off the walls, but every shadow seemed alive. I felt like we were being watched, like Victor and Emily were right behind us, ready to pounce. Naomi buried her face into my shoulder. "Mom, will they hurt me?" she whispered. I hugged her tighter. "No, I promise. You're safe. We're going to get you help." Jacob paused at a small service elevator. "This is the fastest route," he explained. He glanced at me, his face pale but resolute. "Once we get her up, you wait in the intake area. I'll circle back and make sure nobody notices." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The elevator doors opened and Jacob gently lifted Naomi inside, holding her like she was fragile porcelain. I pressed the button for the emergency floor, watching the numbers tick upward slowly, painfully, like the countdown to something inevitable. The ride was silent except for the soft whir of the elevator. Naomi's hand clutched mine tightly, and I could feel her fear radiating into me. It was almost unbearable, but I had to stay strong. She needed me. Finally, the doors opened to a dim hallway. Jacob glanced both ways and then whispered, "Go, I'll distract them if anyone comes." I carried Naomi carefully, inch by inch toward the intake desk. Every step felt like walking on a knife's edge. The fluorescent lights above flickered once, making shadows leap across the walls. I imagined Victor's sharp eyes catching us, Emily's knowing smile revealing she'd already planned for this. But the hallway was empty, for now. We reached the intake room. I set Naomi down gently on a bench. She looked up at me, eyes wide, still trembling. I whispered again, "You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you." Just as I was about to speak again, I heard the distant sound of footsteps echoing down the corridor. My blood froze. Jacob's words echoed in my mind. Once they notice, it's too late. Jacob peeked out the utility room door, scanning the dimly lit hallway. The coast seemed clear, for now. He motioned for us to follow, his finger pressed to his lips. I took a deep breath, lifted Naomi in my arms, and we crept along behind him, shadows among shadows. The emergency intake area was just a few corridors away. Each step felt like walking on eggshells. Every creak in the floor, every distant beep of a monitor sent jolts of adrenaline through my body. Naomi clung to me, whispering, "I'm scared, Mom." I held her tighter. "I know, baby, I know." But we're almost there. As we reached the final corner, a soft voice echoed from above. "Melissa, you think you can hide from me?" My stomach sank. Emily. She was prowling the ICU hallway, probably checking each exit like a predator. My heart thumped painfully against my ribs. I froze, unsure if she had seen us. Jacob whispered urgently, "We need to move, now." He guided me through a narrow service corridor that I had never noticed before. It smelled of antiseptic and industrial cleaner, the kind of place most people never see, perfect for hiding someone. We came to a metal door labeled "Emergency Stairwell, Staff Only." Jacob jiggled the lock with a small tool he always carried. It clicked open. I breathed a sigh of relief, though it was short-lived. The stairwell was dimly lit, concrete walls echoing every sound. It felt like stepping into a tunnel that led straight to danger and safety at the same time. Jacob set Naomi down briefly. "You're okay. You can walk a few steps," he said softly. She nodded, still trembling, and I supported her as we descended the stairs. Each step echoed in the stairwell like thunder. My ears rang. I could hear my own heart pounding in the confined space. Halfway down, we stopped. Jacob held up a hand. From the floor above, faint footsteps approached. Emily's laugh, cold, cruel, taunting. "You can't hide forever," she whispered. My blood ran cold. Jacob held his finger to his lips again. We pressed ourselves against the wall. Naomi's eyes were wide with fear. "Mom, are they going to find us?" she asked. I forced a comforting smile. "No, we're almost safe, I promise." The footsteps passed by and we exhaled quietly. Jacob glanced at us. "One more flight, then we're at the basement exit. Once we're outside, we're free, at least until we figure out what comes next." I held Naomi tightly, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on us. Each step closer to the exit was a step deeper into unknown danger, but there was no turning back. I whispered to myself, "We're almost there. Almost there." We reached the final flight of stairs, my legs trembling beneath the weight of Naomi, and the tension that seemed to cling to the air. Jacob opened the stairwell door carefully and peered out. The basement exit was just beyond the corridor, dim emergency lights flickering, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. It looked empty, too quiet. My stomach churned. Danger has a way of hiding in silence. "Stay close," Jacob whispered. "Once we reach the exit, move fast. Don't stop until you're out of sight." I nodded, pressing Naomi to my side. Her small hand gripped mine tightly. I could feel her heartbeat racing against mine, tiny but fierce. "Almost there," I murmured, more to convince myself than her. The echoes of our footsteps seemed deafening in the empty corridor, each step a countdown to something terrifying yet unknown. We rounded the last corner and the exit was in sight. The cold metal door looked like salvation, but I knew better. Emily and Victor were clever. They'd have eyes and ears everywhere, expecting someone to slip through. My pulse hit my throat. I could feel adrenaline screaming through my veins. Jacob held up his hand. "Wait," he whispered. He pressed his ear against the wall, listening. I could see the tension on his face, the tight line of his jaw, the sweat glinting on his temple. The seconds stretched into eternity. Then he nodded. "Go!" I tightened my grip on Naomi and ran. Every step felt like it might betray us. My breath came in sharp bursts. The exit was so close I could almost taste freedom. Jacob covered our back, glancing over his shoulder with every step. scanning for movement, for danger, for the slightest hint of Victor or Emily. Naomi stumbled slightly and I caught her whispering, "It's okay. We're almost free. Just a few more steps." She looked at me, wide-eyed, trust shining despite the fear. I prayed we weren't walking into another trap. Finally, the door was in front of us. Jacob reached the handle first, his hand steady despite everything. I pushed Naomi gently through and we stepped out into the crisp night air. Relief washed over me, but it was fragile. Danger wasn't gone. It had just retreated, for now. Outside, the parking lot was empty. The cold air hit our faces. I could see the distant lights of the city. Naomi took a shaky breath and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." Her voice trembled, but there was hope there too. Jacob finally stepped out from the stairwell behind us. He looked exhausted but determined. "We're not safe yet," he said, "but we've bought ourselves some time. Time to think. Time to plan our next move." I nodded, gripping Naomi's hand. The night wasn't over, and neither was the danger. But for the first time since it all began, I felt a tiny spark of hope. The night dragged on slowly. Naomi slept in a chair beside me, curled up in a blanket, her small chest rising and falling with each shaky breath. I didn't sleep though. My eyes stayed open, scanning the dark corners of the room, listening for any sound that might signal Emily or Victor had found us. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind against the windows made me flinch. Jacob sat on the floor across from us, his back against the wall. He was silent, lost in thought. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the tight lines on his face. I wanted to ask him what he was thinking, but I didn't dare. He needed this quiet, needed this moment to plan our next move. Finally he spoke. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice low, "we need a plan. Victor and Emily, they won't stop. They're not stupid. They'll look for her, for us." He shook his head. "If we don't act smart, they'll ruin everything." I nodded, swallowing hard. "I know, but what can we do? They have connections, power, influence. They could make anyone believe whatever they want." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure no one believes them. No one. We go through proper channels, but carefully. We can't let them know what we know yet." I glanced at Naomi. Her face was peaceful now, but I knew it was fragile. Too fragile for the storm that was coming. I gently stroked her hair. "She's too young for any of this," I whispered. Jacob looked at me then, eyes sharp. "She's already involved. That's why we need to be careful. We protect her first. Everything else second. That's our priority." I nodded, my mind racing. How had our lives come to this? A missing girl, dangerous adults hiding in plain sight, my own son risking everything to save a child he barely knew. It was unreal. Yet, here we were, alive for now, minutes stretched into hours. We whispered, planned and stayed alert. Every small sound outside the apartment made us jump, our hearts hammering in unison. But by some miracle, the night passed without interruption. Dawn was creeping in, painting the room with a pale light that felt almost like hope. Jacob finally stood. "We move at first light," he said, determination clear in his voice. "Victor and Emily will start looking. We can't wait any longer. Naomi needs protection and we need answers." I helped Naomi to her feet. She yawned and rubbed her eyes, still fragile but awake. I whispered, "Tomorrow we make them pay. In our own way." Jacob nodded, eyes fierce. "Yes, tomorrow we take control, and we don't stop until justice is done." The city outside began to wake, unaware of the night's horrors that had just passed, unaware of the small family determined to survive and fight back against monsters, hidden in plain sight. Morning came like a bruise, gray and heavy. We moved slow, each of us wrapped in exhaustion and a raw kind of resolve. Naomi slept in the back seat of Claire's car while I sat in the driver's seat and tried to think without my hands trembling. Jacob was already up, pacing the sidewalk like a caged animal. "We need proof," he said without looking at me. "Talk won't cut it. Victor and Emily have people. They'll bury everything unless we have something concrete. Video, timestamps, anything showing they were at the car." My throat tightened. But how do we get hospital footage without raising alarms? Sam, Victor's brother, is a lieutenant. He can wipe things clean. Jacob's jaw set. "That's why we can't go to the police. We need someone inside who owes me a favor. Ben, he's a resident in IT now, quiet as a church mouse. He hates Victor for what he did to younger doctors. I can trust him." Within the hour, Ben appeared, jeans, a hoodie, and sleepy eyes that sharpened when Jacob spoke. He listened without interrupting, then nodded slowly. "I can pull the footage from the loading bay cameras," Ben said. "But I'll need access and 15 minutes alone with the server. It'll look suspicious if anyone notices me. I can forge a maintenance request to cover it." We agreed on a plan so thin it could tear at any second. Ben would go in during shift change at 2 p.m., when the cameras rotate and the security office is busiest. Jacob would create a diversion, an urgent patient at entrance, see that needed immediate attention, drawing staff and security away. While that happened, Ben would copy the raw footage to an encrypted drive and slip it to us. Claire offered to hold Naomi in her apartment. "I won't go anywhere," she promised. "She's safe here." We drove back to the hospital like ghosts. Every familiar landmark felt menacing. The front doors looked the same as always. People streaming in and out, nurses with coffee cups, families worried over test results, a normal morning hiding rot underneath. Jacob's face was stone when he grabbed my hand. "If Ben gets us what we need, we can go to a reporter who won't be bought," he whispered. "Or we leak it to an internal board member who won't look the other way." I thought of Naomi's hollow stare in the trunk. I thought of Emily's laugh, Victor's smooth hands. I thought of the life that could be stolen back if someone trusted us for once. We split up. Jacob disappeared into the maelstrom of hospital life. I sat in the car with Naomi's small shoes tucked under my seat, palms pressed to the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. Time moved in tiny, jagged pieces. Then my phone vibrated, a single text from Ben. "Got it. Meet me at the south lot, now." My heart leapt and fell at once. I started the engine. I parked the car in the shadowed south lot, careful to stay out of sight of the main entrances. Naomi sat beside me, barely awake, her small head leaning against the window. I could see the tension in her little body, muscles tight, eyes flicking toward every movement outside. I whispered, "It's okay. It's okay, baby. We've got this." Jacob emerged from the hospital entrance a moment later, his expression unreadable. He gestured toward Ben, who was standing near the edge of the lot, hood up, holding a small encrypted drive like it was a bomb. My stomach churned. I couldn't believe it. We actually had it. The evidence, the proof of Victor and Emily's crimes. Jacob came to the car and slid into the driver's seat beside me. He took a deep breath and said quietly, "We have to be smart. One wrong move and everything, Naomi, Ben, me, everyone, could be destroyed." His jaw tightened. "They've got eyes everywhere." I nodded. "We'll be careful," I promised. "What's the plan now?" Jacob glanced at Naomi, who stirred but didn't fully wake. "She stays here with Claire. You and I need to move fast. Ben will guide us. We can't let Victor and Emily see this drive in our hands." He tapped the small device lightly. "This is the key to stopping them." Ben moved closer and whispered, "I got the timestamps, video footage, and audio from the loading bay. Everything's there. You can see them moving Naomi and everything that happened." His eyes flicked nervously toward the hospital. "But you need to get this somewhere safe. If anyone sees you with it, they'll come after you." I took the drive and held it like it was fragile glass. My fingers shook. Jacob's hand brushed mine, steadying me. "We can do this," he said. "We can finally make them pay for what they did." We slipped into the car, keeping low, moving quietly through the shadows of the lot. Every light we passed seemed like it was designed to catch us. Every window a potential witness. The city hummed around us, oblivious to the small war being fought in a dark corner of its streets. Finally, we reached Claire's apartment. Naomi was curled up in a blanket, her breathing slow and even. I looked down at her tiny face and whispered, "We're not letting anyone hurt you again." Jacob and I sat at the kitchen table, Ben beside us. The drive lay between us, small and unassuming, but inside it was power. Proof that would expose Victor and Emily, proof that could protect Naomi. We leaned in, reviewing the footage frame by frame, heartbeats synchronized with the images on the screen. And for the first time since that night in the car, I felt a spark of hope. We watched the footage in silence, the tension in the room thick enough to choke on. Victor and Emily moved with calculated precision. Smiles, gestures, laughter, everything meant to hide their intentions. But the camera caught it all. Naomi struggling. The way Victor's hand lingered too long on her arm. Emily covering the windows of the car like she knew someone could be watching. My stomach churned. I couldn't look away. Jacob leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "We have them," he said quietly. "Every move, every lie. It's all here. And now we can use it." Ben nodded. "You need to be careful. If they suspect anything, they'll trace it. Cameras, phone records, even employees. Victor doesn't play fair. He's ruthless." I held the drive in my hand, thinking of Naomi's pale face in the trunk, the fear she felt, the horror she endured. My hand trembled, but my mind was sharp. This was more than evidence. It was justice waiting to happen. Jacob exhaled slowly. "We need to plan. Where to release it, how to protect Naomi, and how to make sure they can't touch her or us." He paused, glancing at me. "We can't involve the police yet. Not without an anonymous channel or media connection. Otherwise Sam could bury this instantly." I nodded. "We'll need a reporter. Someone fearless. Someone who can't be bought." Ben spoke up. "I know someone. Local news anchor. Very persistent. Won't back down if you have proof. You give them the drive. Everything goes public." He leaned closer. "Once that happens, Emily and Victor can't do anything without getting caught." Jacob looked at Naomi sleeping peacefully in the corner. "First, we get her somewhere safe permanently. Then we release the footage. We make sure she can grow up without fear, without them looming over her." I felt a mix of hope and dread. This was our chance, a dangerous, risky chance to end this nightmare. But if we misstepped, everything could crumble. Jacob finally stood. "We move tonight. Naomi stays here with Claire. Ben and I will handle the release. We have a window before Victor starts looking for her again. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the plan settle over me. The fight wasn't over, but now we had a weapon. Proof. Undeniable, sharp as a blade. And this time we weren't running blind. We had a plan. We had power. Naomi stirred again, mumbling softly. I leaned over, kissed her forehead. "You're safe now," I whispered, though I knew danger was still out there. But at least now we had a fighting chance. The night ahead would be long, tense, and dangerous. But for the first time since that car, I felt like we could actually win. The night air was thick and heavy as Jacob, Ben, and I prepared to move. Every step outside, Claire's apartment felt like stepping onto a tightrope stretched over a canyon. Naomi was safely asleep inside, her small form hidden under blankets. I prayed she wouldn't stir. Not yet. She had already been through more than any child should ever face. Jacob checked his phone one last time. "Timing is everything," he said. "The anchor we're giving this to. She goes live at 10 p.m. We need to be in position before then." Any delays and Victor could notice something missing. Ben nodded, his hoodie pulled low over his face. "I've covered our tracks digitally. Cameras, access logs, even network monitoring. But if anyone notices a pattern, they'll investigate. That's the risk." I swallowed hard, gripping the drive tightly. It felt heavier than it was. A small piece of plastic carrying the weight of justice, revenge, and hope. I couldn't let it slip. Not now, not ever. Jacob led the way, cautious, scanning the shadows. Ben followed closely, and I brought up the rear, eyes darting to every corner. The streets were quiet, almost too quiet, like the city was holding its breath. Every alley, every parked car could hide eyes, ears, a threat. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. We arrived at the safe house we had arranged earlier. A small, nondescript building on the edge of town. The anchor's contact would meet us here to receive the drive. Jacob whispered instructions. "Stay calm. Stay silent. Hand over the drive. Don't say a word unless necessary." I nodded, but my hands refused to stop trembling. Ben opened the door for us, letting us slip inside quickly. The anchor was waiting, her eyes sharp, scanning the room like a hawk. She didn't speak, just extended her hand for the drive. Jacob placed it in her palm carefully. "Everything you need is on here," he said quietly. "Video, timestamps, audio, proof of everything. Use it wisely and keep Naomi safe." The anchor nodded. "Understood. I'll go live tonight. This will expose them. No way to cover it up." I exhaled slowly, my body finally releasing some tension. Jacob gave me a brief, reassuring glance. "We did what we had to do. Now we wait." Ben leaned against the wall, scanning the street outside. "They'll come looking. We need to be ready if Victor or Emily realize something's happening." I sat down, exhausted but relieved. The drive was gone, the proof in safe hands. And for the first time since the night in the hospital parking lot, I felt a flicker of hope. Naomi would grow up free from their grasp. Justice would be served. And maybe, finally, the nightmare would end. But in the back of my mind, I knew one thing. This battle was far from over. They were dangerous, and now they would be furious. The night was far from over. The hours passed slowly like molasses. Every sound outside the safe house made me flinch. Cars, footsteps, even the wind rattling the old windows. Jacob stayed on alert, pacing the small living room, while Ben monitored their network from a laptop. I sank into a chair, finally letting my body relax just slightly. Naomi was still asleep in Claire's care. For the first time in nearly 2 days, I could breathe without holding back a sob. Jacob finally sat down, rubbing his face. "We have to think ahead," he muttered. "Victor and Emily won't just disappear. They'll search, interrogate, threaten, do everything they can to find Naomi and stop this footage from going public." Ben glanced up from his screen. "We've covered most traces. But if they suspect anything, they'll go to extreme measures. Security footage, car trackers, even personal contacts. We have to be smart." I nodded, my mind spinning. This wasn't just about getting the footage out anymore. It was about survival, keeping Naomi safe, protecting Jacob, protecting myself. Every step we take from here could mean life or death. Jacob leaned forward, his eyes fierce. Tonight, once the broadcast goes live, we make our move. Victor and Emily will be exposed. People will know what they did. Naomi's safe in public sight. That's our advantage. I felt a flicker of hope. Finally, after all the fear, the hiding, the running, we had a chance to fight back. But I also knew this was dangerous. They were clever. They were powerful. They would not go down quietly. Ben's fingers danced over the keyboard, his eyes scanning lines of code and camera feeds. Anchor goes live in 5 minutes. I've set up encrypted channels. Nothing can trace the footage back to us. Once it's public, it's unstoppable. Jacob nodded. Good. Then it's time to prepare for the aftermath. Emergency contacts, safe exits, and contingency plans. We can't be caught off guard. I took a deep breath, looking at them both. We've come this far. We can do this. Naomi will be safe. Justice will happen. Jacob reached over and gently squeezed my hand. It's not over yet, but we're ready. And we're together. As the clock ticked closer to the broadcast, the room filled with a tense, silent anticipation. Every second felt like a lifetime. Every heartbeat was loud in my ears. And somewhere deep down, I knew, once this goes live, nothing will ever be the same again. Not for Victor, not for Emily, not for anyone who thought they could get away with this. And for the first time since that terrifying night in the car, I believed we could win. The broadcast began quietly at first, the anchor's voice calm but firm, narrating the story as the footage played. Victor and Emily were exposed frame by frame, their lies, their cruelty, their deliberate attempts to hide Naomi. My stomach twisted, every nerve in my body on fire, but I stayed glued to the screen. Jacob and Ben were equally tense, eyes locked on the monitor, waiting for the first reactions. Messages started popping up almost instantly. Texts, emails, social media alerts. People shocked, angry, horrified. The hospital administration, previously silent and oblivious, began taking notice. Ben muttered, "It's spreading faster than I thought. They're panicking." Jacob's jaw tightened. Good, let them panic. They need to see that they're not untouchable. I couldn't stop thinking about Naomi. She was safe, sleeping peacefully, unaware that the world had just shifted dramatically on her behalf. My heart ached for her, for what she endured and what could have been. But the relief of knowing she was out of immediate danger was immense. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to hope. Then the phone rang, multiple times. The hospital security chief, Jacob's colleagues, reporters, even anonymous numbers. Jacob ignored most of them, focusing instead on coordinating with Ben and ensuring Naomi's location remained undisclosed. "We've bought her time," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Now we make sure they don't get it back." Suddenly, a notification flashed. Victor had logged into the hospital network remotely. He must have been tracking the footage. My stomach lurched. Jacob slammed his hand on the desk. "He's trying to erase it. Ben, block him now." Ben's fingers flew over the keyboard, working like a machine possessed. Firewalls, encrypted channels, hidden backups, everything Jacob had anticipated. After a few tense minutes, Ben leaned back, exhaling. "He's locked out." "Too late, Victor. The world saw you." Jacob finally stood and looked at me, his face exhausted but determined. "It's not over completely, but it's done. Naomi is safe, and the evidence is out. They can't undo it. They can't touch her now." I nodded, relief washing over me in waves. My hands, which had been clenched in fear and tension for days, finally relaxed. I looked at Jacob and whispered, "We did it. She's safe." He gave a small, weary smile. "Yeah, we did. For now, but we stay vigilant. They'll come for us in other ways. That's the risk." I squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of the night, the hours, the terror, and finally, the victory. Naomi's safety was our triumph, and even though the battle wasn't fully over, The first and most important war had been won. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a pale light through the dusty blinds of the safe house. The tension in the room hadn't lifted completely, but it was quieter now. Jacob sat in the corner, hunched over, reviewing plans for any possible retaliation from Victor or Emily. Ben was still on the laptop, monitoring the hospital network to make sure no one could trace the footage back to us. I finally allowed myself to stretch, my body stiff and aching from days of fear and adrenaline. "We need to think about long-term safety," Jacob said quietly, breaking the silence. "Naomi can't stay in the city. Not while they're free. We need a place where no one can find her, and where she can start healing." His eyes flicked to me. "Melissa, we'll need your help with that." I nodded, my mind raced. We couldn't just hide Naomi forever. We needed a permanent solution. "I know a family in the next state," I said. "They take in kids in danger. Foster system off the grid. They can protect her, keep her identity safe." Jacob's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Good. That's the next step." He glanced at Ben. "Ben, can you wipe all traces of Naomi's presence from the hospital's digital records without raising alarms?" Ben nodded. "Yes, but it'll take some time. The hospital system is complicated. If anyone notices inconsistencies, they'll investigate. We need to do it carefully." I watched Jacob pace, his mind clearly running through every scenario. "We can't let them know we're moving her yet," he said. "If Victor or Emily get wind, they'll try to intercept. We'll have to transport her discreetly." I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I also felt a sense of purpose. For the first time since that night in the car, I knew we were in control. Every step we took from here would be calculated, every action deliberate. And for Naomi, it was worth every second of fear and risk. The morning sunlight caught Naomi's face through the window, and for a moment, I just stared. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. But I knew that beneath that calm, a child had suffered horrors that no one should endure. I bent down and whispered, "You're going to be safe, I promise. No one will hurt you again." Jacob leaned against the wall, silent but watching, his jaw tight. "We've won the first battle," he said. "The rest is about keeping her safe and making sure Victor and Emily never hurt anyone again." I nodded. The night had been long, terrifying and full of uncertainty. But for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. Naomi was alive. She was safe for now. And together, we would fight to make sure she stayed that way. The safe house was quiet except for the soft hum of Ben's laptop and the occasional creak of the old building settling. Jacob and I sat on the couch, planning the next steps. Every decision carried weight. One wrong move could unravel everything we'd fought for. I stared at Naomi's sleeping form in the next room, her small chest rising and falling with each breath, and felt a fierce protective instinct take over. "We need a secure route," Jacob said quietly, pacing. "We can't risk transporting her during the day. Too many cameras, too many people. Nighttime is safer, but even then we need contingencies, backups, escape routes." I nodded. "I know a route through the old warehouse district," I said. "Few cameras, minimal foot traffic at night. I can guide us." Jacob's eyes met mine, a mixture of trust and gratitude shining through his exhaustion. "Good," he said. "We'll do it tonight. Naomi deserves peace, even if it's just for a while." Ben glanced up from the laptop, his expression serious. "I've cleaned up the digital footprint for now. The hospital won't be able to trace Naomi's presence, at least not easily. But Victor will notice. He'll be suspicious. We need to act fast." Jacob nodded. "We'll stay one step ahead. That's all we can do." He turned to me, voice low but firm. "Melissa, I need you to stay calm. Naomi senses fear and we can't let her panic. She's fragile and we have to be strong for her." I swallowed, nodding. "I understand. I'll keep her calm." I thought about all the terrifying nights Naomi had endured, all the moments she had felt powerless. I clenched my fists, vowing silently that no one would ever make her feel that way again. Hours passed slowly. The night stretched out like a dark canvas, waiting for our move. Jacob went over the plans repeatedly, checking every detail, every corner, every potential threat. Ben monitored the network feeds, ensuring no unwanted eyes could see our movements. I sat beside Naomi, gently brushing her hair back from her face. Her innocence amidst the chaos strengthened my resolve. Finally, the moment came. Jacob stood, eyes determined, shoulders squared. "It's time," he said. "We move under cover of darkness. Stick close and trust the plan." I nodded, lifting Naomi into my arms. The night air was cold against my skin, but it felt good, like freedom, like possibility. Jacob and Ben flanked us, and together, we stepped into the shadows, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Every heartbeat echoed with anticipation. Every breath carried purpose. Tonight, we fought for Naomi's future. Tonight, we reclaimed control. And for the first time since that terrifying night in the car, I believed we would win, fully, finally, and without compromise. We moved through the shadows, the city around us unaware of the small war unfolding in its streets. Naomi clung to me, her tiny hands gripping my arm as we navigated the deserted alleys and back streets. The cold night air stung our faces, but it was better than the suffocating fear of being inside the city, where Victor and Emily could find us in an instant. Jacob led the way, scanning every corner, every darkened doorway. Ben followed behind us, eyes flicking constantly to his phone, monitoring movement, tracking any potential threat. My heart raced with every step, adrenaline and fear coiling tight in my chest. But there was determination there too, a fierce resolve to protect Naomi at all costs. We reached the warehouse district I had scouted earlier. The streets were empty, shadows stretching long under flickering streetlights. This route was risky but necessary. Fewer cameras, fewer witnesses, fewer eyes to report our movements. I whispered to Naomi, "Almost there, baby. Just a little longer." Her eyes, wide and trusting, followed mine. She nodded quietly, holding on to me like I was her anchor in the storm. Jacob paused at the entrance to a small, abandoned warehouse. "This is it," he said. "We'll rest here briefly, assess the area, and then move the final stretch to the safe house." His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the tension underlying it. Every sound, a car door slamming in the distance, the rustle of a rat, made me flinch. Inside the warehouse, it was cold and dusty, but it offered temporary shelter. We set Naomi down gently on a pile of old blankets. She shivered but didn't complain, too tired for anything but exhaustion. I sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're safe now," I whispered. "No one can touch you." Jacob and Ben worked quickly, checking exits, monitoring the surrounding area, ensuring our path to the final safe house was clear. Minutes stretched into an eternity, each second thick with tension. But finally, Jacob nodded. "Okay, we move. This is our last stretch. After this, Naomi will truly be safe." I lifted Naomi, feeling the weight of her small, fragile body, the weight of all the fear, all the terror she'd endured. And yet, as we stepped back into the night, I felt a flicker of hope. Tonight, the nightmare would end. Tonight, she would finally be free. The final stretch to the safe house felt endless. Every shadow seemed alive, every distant sound a potential threat. Naomi rested against me, exhausted but alert, sensing the tension in the air. Her tiny hand squeezed mine, silent reassurance in the darkness. I whispered softly, "Almost there, baby. Just a little longer." Her eyes, reflecting the faint streetlights, held a trust I couldn't let go of. Jacob moved ahead, his body low and alert, scanning every corner. Ben trailed behind, occasionally checking his phone for alerts or messages. My mind was sharp despite the exhaustion, every sense heightened. I could hear the faint rustle of wind through empty streets. the distant hum of a late-night vehicle, but nothing approached. Yet the fear lingered, a constant pulse in my chest reminding me that Victor and Emily could strike at any moment. Finally, we saw it. The safe house, small and unassuming, just as we'd planned. Relief hit me like a wave, but I stayed alert. We weren't safe until Naomi was inside. Jacob signaled and we moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows, making sure the path was clear. Inside, the safe house smelled faintly of coffee and dust. Lights were dim, and for the first time since that terrifying night, I allowed myself to breathe. Naomi sank into a chair, her tiny body finally relaxing. She rubbed her eyes sleepily, still holding onto my hand. "We're here," I whispered. "You're safe now." Jacob checked all exits and windows, ensuring everything was secure. Ben monitored the outside through his phone. "No movement," he confirmed. "They don't know we're here." Jacob exhaled, tension slowly leaving his shoulders. "Good, let's keep it that way." I sat beside Naomi, brushing back her hair and whispering softly. "You're free, baby. No one can hurt you again." She leaned into me, exhausted, yet somehow comforted. The weight of the past days, the fear, the terror, the nights of hiding began to lift, replaced by relief and hope. Jacob joined us, finally allowing a small smile. "We did it," he said quietly. "She's safe. And with the evidence out there, Victor and Emily can't touch her anymore." I looked at Naomi, peaceful for the first time in days. A sense of victory washed over me. This battle was far from over, but the first and most important war had been won. Justice had a chance. Naomi's life had a chance. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the nightmare slowly loosening its grip. The following day, the safe house was quiet but tense. Naomi slept for hours, her body finally surrendering to the exhaustion of days filled with terror and uncertainty. Jacob and I stayed awake, discussing the next steps in whispers, careful not to wake her. Ben sat nearby, monitoring communications and ensuring no trace of our movements could be discovered. The world outside continued, oblivious to the danger we had narrowly escaped. Jacob leaned back against the wall, rubbing his eyes. "We need to plan for long-term safety," he said. "Naomi can't stay here forever. We need a permanent solution, someone who can protect her, shield her from anyone who might try to reach her." He glanced at me. "Melissa, we'll need your help with this." I nodded, thinking quickly. "I know a family in another state. They work off the grid, take in kids at risk, and provide protection. They can keep her identity hidden and give her a real chance at a normal life." Jacob's expression softened slightly. "Good, that's the first step. The second is making sure Victor and Emily can't retaliate. We need layers of protection." Ben spoke up, still focused on his laptop. "I've wiped all traces from the hospital network and masked her digital footprint for now. But Victor will notice. If he investigates further, he might get suspicious. We need contingency plans, multiple safe houses, backup routes, and constant monitoring." I felt a shiver run through me, but determination steadied my hands. "We'll make it work. Naomi deserves freedom. She deserves to feel safe." Jacob nodded, eyes fierce. "Exactly. And we're going to make sure she gets it." Hours passed in careful planning. We mapped routes, prepared documents under assumed identities, and coordinated with the family who would take Naomi. Each detail mattered. Every precaution could be the difference between safety and danger. The tension in the room was heavy, but there was also hope. Fragile, yet real. Finally, Jacob glanced at Naomi, still asleep. "Once she's moved, we'll have done everything we can for her. After that, we monitor, support, and wait. They'll try to come after her, but we'll be ready." I nodded, brushing a loose strand of hair from Naomi's face. "She's going to be okay. She's going to have a life she deserves." Ben looked up from his laptop, giving a small smile. "We did it. She's safe for now. And with the footage out, the world knows the truth. Victor and Emily can't get away with it. I exhaled, relief washing over me. For the first time since that terrifying night in the car, I allowed myself to believe Naomi's nightmare was ending, and a new chapter could finally begin. The evening came with a quiet tension. Naomi had woken briefly, asking for water, but otherwise she seemed peaceful. Jacob and I kept her close, preparing for the move to the family who would protect her. Every second felt heavy, knowing that any slip could undo all the progress we'd made. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, but I refused to let fear dictate my actions. Jacob reviewed the plans one last time. "We'll move her at night," he said, his voice low and steady. "The route is secure, Ben has monitored it, and Claire will provide cover. We can't take chances." He looked at Naomi, asleep on a cot in the corner, and a small flicker of softness appeared in his eyes. "She doesn't deserve this," he whispered. I nodded. "She deserves a chance at normal life, someone who can protect her, teach her to trust again. She's been through too much." My voice cracked slightly, and I quickly cleared my throat. Jacob's hand brushed mine briefly, a silent support. We both knew words couldn't capture the weight of what had happened. Ben packed up his equipment carefully. All digital traces are cleaned. Naomi's presence, our movements, the drive's handling, nothing will lead back to her or us. But we need to act quickly. The family can't know the exact timing until we're on the move. His seriousness matched Jacob's. Every precaution was necessary. When night finally fell, we prepared Naomi. She still seemed fragile, but her small trust in us was evident. I whispered gently, "We're going to someone who will keep you safe. No one will hurt you again." She blinked, her small hand curling around mine. I felt the immense weight of the promise I had made to her in that moment. Jacob led the way, sticking to shadows, scanning every corner. Ben monitored communication channels, ensuring no one could track our movement. I followed closely behind, carrying Naomi, feeling both the fragility and the strength in her small body pressed against mine. Finally, we reached the drop-off point. The family we had coordinated with waited, quiet and professional. Jacob handed Naomi over carefully, giving me a brief glance. "She's safe now," he whispered. The relief in that simple statement made my chest ache. I watched Naomi's tiny figure disappear behind the door, escorted by people who would protect her. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to breathe fully. The nightmare of the hospital, of Victor and Emily, had ended, at least for Naomi. And though danger still lingered in the shadows, hope finally had a place to grow. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the apartment. Jacob and I sat at the small kitchen table, sipping coffee in near silence. The exhaustion from the past days weighed heavily on us, but the tension lingered like a shadow we couldn't shake. Every sound outside reminded me that Victor and Emily were still out there, watching, waiting for a misstep. Jacob finally spoke. We need to create layers of protection. Naomi is safe for now, but we can't let our guard down. We need multiple safe locations, emergency contacts, and secure communication channels. Anything less is reckless. I nodded, understanding fully. We can do it. We'll rotate safe houses, keep her identity hidden, and only a select few will know her location. She'll be untouchable. Ben chimed in from the laptop, his eyes scanning incoming feeds. Digital traces are minimal, but Victor is resourceful. If he suspects something, he'll hire private investigators, dig through associates, even monitor our networks. We need contingencies ready, safe exits, false leads, everything. Jacob's jaw tightened. Exactly. We anticipate every move. Stay 2 steps ahead. That's how we survive. I leaned back, letting my mind wander briefly to Naomi. She was asleep at her foster family's home, finally getting rest in a place where no one would hunt her. My chest ached with relief and sorrow. Relief that she was safe, and sorrow for everything she had endured. Jacob reached over, placing a firm hand on mine. Melissa, we've done the hard part. But the fight isn't over. Victor and Emily won't give up. They'll try to reclaim power, intimidate anyone involved. We need to be ready for them. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. We'll protect her. We'll protect ourselves. And if they come, they'll regret it. Ben closed his laptop, finally allowing a small exhale. The footage went public. There's no way to undo that. Victor and Emily are exposed. They've lost control. The only thing left is to make sure Naomi remains safe and that we remain invisible to them. Jacob nodded, eyes sharp, mind already racing through potential threats. We've done what we can for her now. The rest is preparation, patience, and vigilance. For the first time since that night in the car, I felt a small measure of calm. Naomi was safe. Justice had started. And though the shadows of danger still lingered, we had taken the first steps toward reclaiming control, our lives and hers. The day passed slowly, tension mixed with cautious relief. Jacob, Ben, and I stayed close to the safe house, monitoring communications, ensuring nothing traced back to Naomi or us. Every phone ping, every passing vehicle felt like a potential threat, but each time we reminded ourselves the worst was over. Jacob reviewed plans for long-term security. We rotate safe houses weekly, he said, voice calm but firm. Naomi's identity must remain hidden. No patterns, no traces, nothing predictable. If Victor or Emily even suspect they'll act, I nodded, scribbling notes. We can set up decoy schedules, multiple routes, emergency contacts disguised as ordinary friends. That way, even if they follow one lead, they hit a dead end. Ben looked up from his laptop. I've encrypted all communications, set up anonymous accounts, and monitored hospital feeds for any suspicious activity. For now, everything looks clean, but we need constant vigilance. One mistake could undo months of effort. Jacob rubbed his temples. Agreed. This isn't just about immediate safety. We need a system that lasts, a network of protection for Naomi long-term. She can't live in fear, even quietly. I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, but determination steadied me. She deserves freedom, I whispered. A life without fear, without shadows haunting her steps. Jacob's eyes softened, briefly as he glanced toward the empty chair where Naomi would be if she were here. She will have it. We've done the impossible to get her this far. Now it's about keeping her safe and maintaining control. Victor and Emily won't stop, but neither will we. Ben leaned back. The footage remains public. Social media, news, internal hospital alerts. Victor and Emily's exposure is complete. They've lost credibility, influence, and control. The only thing left for them is to lash out, and we'll be ready. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension ease just slightly. Naomi's safety, for the moment, was secured. The evidence was out, and for the first time since that terrifying night in the car, I allowed myself to hope that justice could prevail. Jacob looked at us both. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we implement the long-term protection plan. For Naomi's future, for our peace, we can't afford mistakes. I nodded, glancing at the city beyond the window. Darkness and danger still lingered, but we had taken control. Naomi's nightmare had ended, at least for now, and that small victory gave us the courage to keep fighting for the life she deserved. Night fell quietly, wrapping the city in a veil of darkness. Jacob, Ben, and I stayed alert, though exhaustion weighed heavily on our bodies. Naomi was secure in the family's care, finally getting the rest she deserved. For us, though, the danger remained. Victor and Emily were unpredictable, ruthless and relentless. Jacob leaned back in the chair, rubbing his eyes. We need to set up contingency plans for every possible scenario. Safe houses, decoy routes, emergency signals, contacts who can move quickly if things go wrong. His voice was calm, but his gaze was sharp, scanning the room as if danger could appear at any second. Ben nodded, tapping on his laptop. All digital traces are cleared. Naomi's identity is protected, but we still need to consider human threats. Anyone linked to her or us could be used as leverage. We have to anticipate that. I listened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. We can do this, I said softly. We'll make sure she stays safe. Nothing slips past us. Not now, not ever. Jacob glanced at me, a small flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Melissa, we've done the hard part, but vigilance is key. They'll test us. They'll try to find her. But we'll be ready. The hours dragged on as we reviewed maps, routes, and contacts. Every detail mattered. Every street, alley, and exit point accounted for. We couldn't leave anything to chance. Even the smallest mistake could put Naomi at risk. Finally, I leaned back and let out a long, exhausted breath. For now, she's safe. That's what matters. Jacob nodded, his expression softening slightly. Yes, but the fight isn't over. We keep planning, stay alert, and make sure she has a life worth living. That's our mission. Ben closed the laptop. Everything is ready. Naomi is protected. Victor and Emily are exposed. Any attempt to interfere will be traceable. We've done what we can. I looked out the window at the quiet city streets, the shadows stretching long and silent. For Naomi, the nightmare had ended. For us, the battle continued, a careful, calculated fight to maintain her safety and protect her future. Jacob's voice broke the silence. Tomorrow, we implement the long-term measures. Tonight, we rest, but not completely. The shadows are still out there and we have to stay sharp. I nodded, feeling the relief of temporary safety, but aware that the fight was far from over. Naomi's life was beginning anew, and we were the guardians making sure her second chance was real. The next day was quiet, almost unnervingly so. The city carried on as usual, unaware of the chaos we had narrowly escaped and the careful planning that still governed our lives. Naomi was safe in her temporary home, shielded from the outside world. And I found myself thinking about her constantly, imagining her waking up, smiling without fear, playing without worry. Jacob, Ben, and I reviewed long-term strategies. We need redundancy, Jacob said, voice low but steady. Multiple safe houses, decoy addresses, encrypted communication, emergency contacts. If one plan fails, another must be ready. We can't leave anything to chance, Ben added. I've already encrypted communication channels and ensured Naomi's identity is untraceable. But the human factor is always tricky. We need trusted allies, people who can act quickly and quietly. I leaned over the map on the table, tracing routes with my finger. We can rotate her locations weekly, move her only at night. Every detail needs to be rehearsed and memorized. That way, even if someone follows a lead, they'll hit a dead end. Jacob nodded, his face tense but focused. Exactly. Control is everything. Victor and Emily can't get a single advantage. And we need to maintain it for months, maybe years. This is more than just surviving. It's about building her future. Hours passed in meticulous planning. We coordinated emergency numbers, rehearsed escape routes, and created false schedules to mislead any potential watchers. The stakes were high, and every second of vigilance mattered. Finally, I allowed myself to look out the window, feeling a flicker of relief. Naomi was protected. The evidence against Victor and Emily was public and undeniable. Their ability to manipulate, intimidate, and control was crippled. Jacob's voice broke my thoughts. Tomorrow we execute the first phase of her long-term protection. Every move will be calculated, every risk accounted for. She deserves a life free of fear. I nodded, brushing a hand over my face. The exhaustion of the past week weighed heavily, but determination burned stronger. Naomi's safety, her freedom, and her chance at a normal life were worth every sleepless night and every tense decision. Ben finally closed his laptop. Everything is ready. Naomi is secure. The world knows the truth. Now it's up to us to make sure she can live it safely. I took a deep breath, allowing a small sense of calm to settle. The battle was far from over, but for Naomi, the nightmare had ended. And that was enough for today. The morning arrived with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. The city moved on outside, unaware of the battles fought in its shadows, unaware of the fragile life we had saved. Naomi, for the first time, woke in a place where fear didn't dictate her every move. Her small face was peaceful, her breathing steady, and for a moment, I allowed myself to truly believe, that the nightmare had ended. Jacob and I sat quietly, reviewing the final phase of her long-term protection plan. Every safe house, every route, every contingency has been mapped, he said, voice calm but firm. Naomi is protected on every level. We've minimized risk, hidden her identity, and created layers of security that even Victor and Emily cannot breach. Ben nodded, eyes scanning the digital feeds one last time. All networks are secure. Any attempt to interfere will be immediately traceable. The evidence against them is public and undeniable. Naomi's life is finally shielded from their control. I leaned back, letting the tension in my body ease slightly. Weeks of fear, planning, and near constant vigilance had brought us here. Naomi was safe. Justice had begun. The world knew the truth. And now it was our responsibility to ensure her future remained bright, free from shadows. Jacob reached over, placing a hand on my shoulder. This is the last stage, he said. Tomorrow, Naomi moves to her permanent guardians. From there, she can start living a normal life. No fear, no shadows, just safety and the chance to grow into the life she deserves. I smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from Naomi's face, imagining the freedom she would finally have. She's going to be happy, I whispered. She's going to be free. Ben closed the laptop with a final click. Everything is in place. We've done what we could. Now it's time for her to live her life. Jacob and I stood, taking one last look around the temporary safe house. The battle was over. Naomi's nightmare had ended, and though vigilance would always be necessary, For the first time, hope was stronger than fear. As the day began, we prepared her for the move. Naomi, small but resilient, trusted us completely. Her life was about to change forever. A life free from manipulation, fear, and shadows. She would grow up with safety, love, and the chance to flourish. And as we watched her walk toward her new future, I whispered a promise to myself. We would always protect her no matter what. The nightmare was over. Naomi was finally free.